Okay, welcome back to hopefully the final video for Stasis Theory. I know last time we looked briefly at these 4 questions. I want to review them a little bit here and then elaborate on them as we wrap this important topic up. So again, 4 questions, important to ask them in the right order. Conjecture, does it exist? Did it happen? Definition, what kind of thing is it? Quality, was it right or wrong? Policy, what should we do? Now you might not necessarily always ask policy for your topic, for your thesis, if it is not necessarily something that needs some sort of intervention or change. If you are looking at something more historical, informational, just want to give us a different view on some past event or some view on some, why Isaac Asimov is a better science fiction author than L. Ron Hubbard or something, for example, the only policy should be, well, read this author instead of the other one. But if it's something, say, as we've had in the past, like the French Revolution, there's not really a whole lot of things we can do about that right now, but knowing conjecture, definition, quality, those are certainly relevant to definitely every kind of rhetorical enterprise. So let's get into them a little bit more detail, okay? Why do you have to go through them in order? Because you have to find out where we agree and where we disagree. Because if you're trying to argue, say, for example, climate change or global warming, as sometimes it's called, if you are arguing for legislation and your opponents don't even think that it really exists, like we saw before with the example of abortion, you're arguing 2 different kinds of things. You're never going to make any progress, much like we see right now. There are 2 different perspectives saying, we have to change legislation, we have to get the government involved, we have to change the automotive industry, we have to do all these things. And the opposition says, well, this issue doesn't even happen. It's not even a real thing. So you can't jump right to quality, it's right or wrong, before you agree that it exists and you can label it the right thing, as we saw before with, is it morality, is it politics, things like that. So you got to ask these questions in order, find out where you agree, find out where you disagree, find out where the argument needs to begin. Because if everybody agrees on what, say, that it exists, and everybody agrees what it's called, and everybody agrees on the quality of it, and the only real issue is policy, then you can save a lot of time in your argument if it's just about a matter of what should we do next, not it's right or wrong. If people already agree on that, then you can save yourself, like I said, a great deal of time asking these questions in advance. So got to go through them in order. So the first one again is conjecture. Does it exist? Did it happen? Why is this where we begin? Because people see reality differently, and people take their positions because of their interest level. That's why they're arguing for it. Again, why you are picking a topic that you already have an interest in and want to think about more. Ask the origins of it. Where did it come from? How did it begin? You'll answer some of those questions in your narration section of your thesis. Bring your audience up to speed on what caused it. How did the issue get to where it is today? Just so they'll know, and you can provide that necessary background information. Can it be changed there, D? Again, like we said, if you're not interested in some sort of policy issue, you still need to know if it can or cannot be changed. You got to address that at the beginning. If the nature of it's not something that can be changed, this is the time to ask whether it can be changed or not before you get to, policy. So question number 1, conjecture. Does it exist? Is it true? Where did it come from? An important place to begin. Why? Because it demonstrates the evidence that you need to make your argument. Maybe it'll help you find out there is no issue at all. And you probably had this sort of experience with your parents in the past. They're concerned that something really bad or dangerous happened, and you don't understand why they're all upset or why they're getting so emotional about it. And then you realize, oh, that wasn't us. We weren't there. That didn't happen. That sort of thing. We weren't involved. There is no issue at all. So you probably had those situations in life where you didn't know there was an issue, and the other people involved in this debate were saying there was an issue. You got to ask this question before you can talk about whether it's right or wrong. Maybe the issue is framed incorrectly. Maybe you realize that you've got to, the more you read about it and research it and its origins of this issue, where it came from and how it got to where it is, you realize, oh, I didn't know that's where it came from, or maybe I'm arguing for the wrong position. And we've had students in the past who have argued for one side of the issue, and then eventually, after more research, thinking about it, having more conversations with family and friends, they realize, oh, I'm arguing for the wrong side, and I will just arrange the tone of my arguments, arrange what I had as refutation, make that confirmation, things like that. So as you grow and think through this issue and do more reading and research over the months ahead, allow for intellectual development. And that's why knowing what a thing is, where it came from, is an important place to begin. So conjecture, did it happen? Does it exist? And then you can move on to definition. What kind of thing is it? What kind of category does it belong to? Is this, as you said before, is it an issue of morality or politics or rights or the laws of nature, things like that? What larger class of human experience does this idea belong to? What are the parts of this issue? How are they related? Sounds a lot like analysis from English class, and that's certainly a crucial part of what we're going to be doing here in the months ahead. It will help you choose your battleground if you know the category of thing it is, how you're going to fight, what kind of arguments you're going to use, if it's really an issue of morality or rights or legality, things like that. Help you arrange your arguments, and maybe you say, all right, the moral component is probably going to convince my audience the strongest, so I'll begin with that. Then I'll then I'll start talking about the political aspects of it, and then end up with another strong case, the legal issues as well. So once you know the parts of your argument and what kind of thing it is, then that'll help you figure out what is the best order to display my proofs to my audience. So conjecture, definition, and then number 3, quality. What is this a moral issue? Is it compared to other things? What is the moral quality of my idea, my perspective here? Cicero said that once you know whether a thing exists or not and what kind of thing it is, it's important to know what is the moral component, what is its real quality in relation to other things in various spectrum, of morality or honorability, things like that. So Cicero said we need to know these things so we can find what we should seek and understand and be like, and what to avoid, and what kinds of people we should be more like, and what kind of people we should avoid, as far as leaders of the past, things like that. Know the rightness and wrongness of the issue. Is this choice more right than some others, and things like that? What is honorable? What is base? So this is where morality, right and wrong, come into the nature of this thesis here. Now, this first part here says simple because that's the basic way to think about it as what is the nature of this thing itself? Is my idea, is my thesis topic, is it good or bad, right? Gun control, is it in general, or by its very nature, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing, right? Is free internet, should that be sought or should be avoided just by itself? I think, maybe you'll say, I think the free access to the internet for everybody should be sought. Basically, boom, that's a simple quality. It's something that should be sought. It is a right thing. It is an honorable thing all by itself. And that's a helpful place to begin. But more than that, the more important aspect of the question of quality is here in the comparative spectrum of these things. And as we go forward, we really want to have concrete examples to compare and contrast it with. Don't just say, well, free internet is a good thing. I think it is better than, when you state your alternative, it is better than, a small number of internet providers having access to the internet, and they get to charge whatever they want for you to use their products and things like that. Some concrete alternative to compare and contrast with. My topic is more desirable than some specific alternatives that I'll give you right now. It is more right than the alternative, right? Or less dishonorable or something like that. So this looks like a big long chart, but once you figure out the basic categories that you're putting something specific and contrast with your thesis and your topic, the comparative degree of the question of quality becomes quite easier to understand. So, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. Not necessarily that you're going to answer all of these questions for your thesis necessarily, but we want you to start thinking in terms of comparative terms. I have specific things in mind that my thesis topic is better than, superior to, more honorable, more morally right than the alternatives. In part to demonstrate to your audience, I've taken the time to figure out what the alternatives actually are, and why my choice, my solution to this issue, is the best of the the available options. So conjecture, degree, quality, definition and quality, and lastly, policy. Like we said, you might not necessarily want to affect some sort of policy change, especially if you're not really interested in some sort of governmental political issue. But if you are, especially, you're going to want to come up with some meaningful policy changes to demonstrate and make clear for your audience. All right, should some action be taken? Given the situation, what actions are possible? These are questions that you need to ask and come up with solutions to. You don't want to just say, all right, I've laid out the problem, now go out and figure out how to solve it. Your audience is not going to take too kindly to you just saying, all right, there's a problem, I've identified the problem, I haven't spent any time trying to solve this problem, I'll let you do that. Most audiences don't really take too kindly to that. So you got to take the time, if you want to change something, to answer these questions. How will it change the affairs for a lot of people? And D, especially, how will the proposed changes make things better or worse for some people in some ways? The affordable health care a few years ago was good for a lot of people, gave people a lot of access to medical needs and services that were very important. It also made things worse for quite a few people in this country, as a lot of people who had health care coverage lost it because their health care policies became, ironically enough, unaffordable from the Affordable Health Care Act. So always got to think through, my solutions seem like the right thing to do, but will they make things better for everybody, and to what degree will they affect other people? So always more to think about than we already believe at first. There are some forensic aspects of this. For those of you, like I said, interested in legal aspects, I'll let you, look at these yourself and read through these on your own, since, as we said, we're going to focus more on the deliberative aspect for our senior thesis. So when you're doing it, especially those, for example, in student government, here's some basic tips on how to make the policies that you want to improve for the school and in the years ahead. In other endeavors, if you're something new, write it out. Don't just talk about it. Figure out how similar policies are enacted. Determine how it can be enforced, especially. That's an important one, certainly for a student government at school. What meaningful ways can this new rule or policy change be actually enforced by teachers and staff, things like that. If you want to affect something that already exists, write it down. Figure out who can make the changes and what procedures are best followed to make them, and suggestions on how it can be followed and enforced. Like we said, don't just say, here's a problem, now you go fix it. Take the time to figure out what are the best ways to offer solutions. And don't just say, well, write your congressman, write your, the people in Washington, and they'll solve the problems. That's never a good way to propose a solution for a senior thesis. Do something meaningful, give them websites they can access, find the names and addresses of organizations that are involved and things like that. Give your audience tangible, real things that they can do to follow. Now, if they believe what you believe about your thesis, give them things that they can actually do. Okay. So what have we been looking at here with stasis theory? I know it sounds like a lot, but when you boil it down, it's all about figuring out where to begin. How do I want to frame my thesis? What level of general or specific category, remember, affecting how much research I'm going to need to do, how theoretical or how practical do I want to make it? And that'll probably change as the months go by and the more research you do. Okay, but it's important to know where to begin. Then you start asking questions of conjecture. Does it exist? Definition. What category does it belong to? Quality. Compared to other things, other specific members of this category, is my solution more more honorable, more moral, things like that? Have specific comparing and contrasting ideas in mind. Policy, what sort of changes can we make, should we make, how do we make them, how do we enforce them, things like that. You don't necessarily all need to do policy, but if your thesis lends itself to that, make sure you take the time to figure that out. All right? So that tells you what you need to find out, what level and amount of research you need to do, and figure out where to begin. And as we'll move forward in invention the weeks ahead, then we'll build upon this basis of asking the right questions, and we'll have even more success. So thank you again for listening to this long topic, but the important issue of stasis theory. We'll see you next time.